Most of your life, if you really think about it, is spent fighting yourself. It's this constant friction that makes high performance feel like such a grind, right? But what if I told you there's a state of being where that friction just vanishes, where time seems to bend, your ego melts away, and you feel like you're just a passenger to your own excellence? Well, that's what we're calling neural resonance. You probably know it as the flow state. And here's the kicker. It's not some mystical gift. It's actually a biological default that you've just, forgotten how to switch on.
Okay, so let's dive into this because this slide just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly illustrates that friction we all feel every single day. You want to work, but your brain is screaming for a quick hit of dopamine. You want to create something amazing, but your mind feels heavy. It's pulling you towards distraction. This is that constant battle, that internal tug of war that makes progress feel like you're pulling a giant weight through sand.
But what if you could just turn all that friction off? Really, that is the promise of neural resonance. It's this incredible state where that internal fight just disappears, and you become completely, totally absorbed. And the science on this is absolutely clear. This isn't magic. It's not something reserved for elite athletes or geniuses. It is a system that is hardwired directly into your biology.
So, to really understand how to access this state, we've got to go way back. We need to look at why it even exists in the first place. And believe me, its origins are ancient.
Think about it for a second. Your brain's ability to get into flow didn't evolve for writing emails or coding an app. No way. It evolved for super high-stakes, life-or-death situations. We're talking about hunting prey or, escaping a predator. In those moments, absolute, unwavering focus was the only thing that mattered for survival.
So during these critical moments, your brain releases this very specific cocktail of chemicals. You've got norepinephrine, which sharpens your vision and creates this intense tunnel vision focus. Then dopamine comes in to reward the pursuit, making you feel good as you get closer to your goal. And then you have anandamide, which actually expands your lateral thinking, helping you make these creative connections to solve problems on the fly. It is literally a cocktail for peak performance.
And here's the crucial point, right? We don't have saber-toothed tigers chasing us to work anymore. Our daily tasks, they don't automatically trigger this incredible survival state. And that means we have to consciously trick our own biology into believing that the task at hand is a matter of survival. We have to manufacture the stakes ourselves. So the big question is, how do we do that? How do we manufacture those stakes? Well, it all starts by finding this perfect balance point, a real sweet spot of struggle. Decades of incredible research by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi on what he called optimal experience shows that flow happens in a very, very specific zone. It's not about being relaxed, and it's definitely not about being totally overwhelmed. It's a delicate balance, a really narrow bridge between two feelings we all know very well.
Now, what's so interesting about this is how clearly it defines the edges of that bridge, right? On one side, if a task is way too easy for your skills, you get bored. Your mind drifts, you start checking your phone, focus is pretty much impossible. But on the other side, if a task is way too difficult, you get anxious, you panic, you feel overwhelmed, and you just want to quit. Neither one of those states is going to lead to high performance.
Research actually suggests that the sweet spot, that perfect bridge, is right here. The task needs to be roughly 4% beyond your current skill level. Just 4%, that's it. It's just enough to stretch you, to demand your full attention, but not so much that it completely breaks you.
And this initial difficulty, this little 4% stretch, is what we call the struggle phase. Now, this is super important. It is not a sign that you're failing. It's actually the necessary friction you need to ignite that state of deep focus. You have to embrace that initial clumsiness, knowing that it's the very thing that triggers the neurochemicals you need.
Okay, so knowing the theory is one thing, but putting it all into practice, that requires a clear, repeatable strategy. So let's get into the protocol for actually launching yourself into flow. First things first, forget about waiting for inspiration to strike. That's a total myth. Flow isn't something you just stumble into by accident. It's a state that you can trigger systematically, kind of like a pilot running through a pre-flight checklist before takeoff. And this slide just illustrates the practical steps so brilliantly. First up, the signal. This is your ritual, right? It tells your nervous system, hey, it's time to focus. Next, the clear goal. Your brain hates vague ideas. A goal like write 200 words gives it clear, crisp direction. And third, this is my favorite, the unfinished bridge. You leave a task just a little bit undone. This creates a kind of cognitive tension that makes it almost effortless to dive right back in the next day. It's a fantastic hack.
But look, getting into flow is really only half the battle. If you want to sustain it over the long term, day after day, you have to master something that most of us completely ignore.
Being in the zone feels absolutely amazing, but it is incredibly demanding on your brain's resources. It's consuming those performance-enhancing neurochemicals, your dopamine, your norepinephrine, like a rocket burns through fuel on its way to orbit. You just can't stay at that peak forever.
This right here, this is a massive mindset shift for most of us. We're all taught to just grind, to push harder and harder. But rest isn't laziness, it is a strategic, non-negotiable part of high performance. If you want to reach the peak of flow tomorrow, you absolutely must honor the valley of recovery today.
And honoring that recovery valley with activities like these is exactly what allows your brain to reload the neurochemicals you need for your next session. Deep sleep, a simple walk without your phone, or even just staring out the window, what some people call productive boredom. These are not wastes of time. They are the fueling protocol.
So, what's the ultimate goal here? What's the point of mastering flow? Well, it's much, much bigger than just getting more stuff done faster.
We really need to reframe our entire objective. If you're thinking this is all just a productivity hack to tick more items off your to-do list, you're missing the most powerful part of this whole concept.
The true aim here is to change your entire experience of being. It's to shift from a life that's lived in this state of constant low-grade distraction to one of deep, meaningful engagement, where this feeling of resonance actually becomes your normal way of operating.
And this is really where it all comes together. When you master this, you completely transform your daily experience. You stop just doing things, doing work, doing chores, and you start experiencing them as a series of challenges that reveal your highest, most capable self.
Look, the formula is simple. The hardware is already installed in your brain, and the tools, well, they're in your hands now. So the only question that's left is this: will you finally stop fighting yourself and start building that bridge?